Hello, and welcome to Crime in Court. My name's Heather, and this is the second episode in my Making a Murderer series, which we're going to uncover court documents and legal proceedings that were going on throughout the 1985 Beernsten case, which he was wrongfully convicted of, the first wrongful conviction that he had. And then we have a couple episodes of that, and then we'll go into the Teresa Halbach storyline and how he fits into that. And I believe that he was wrongfully convicted twice now. I just think that there's too much reasonable doubt, but we'll get there later on. You guys can absolutely feel differently, and that's okay, but this is to help us understand what actually happened and figure out what to believe, because I might change my mind throughout this. We'll see. I don't know if the evidence is going to lead to that, so we'll just keep on trucking and get through it. So this is episode 2, like I said, thumbnail here. Episode 2, Steven's concrete alibi. And that'll make sense in a minute. So we're going to read through, again, we're reading through the case file. We're going to skip, this is 60 pages. This is including like witness statements and things like that. We're not going to get through all of it. But I just want you to know that it's here, and we might just skim through some of these portions. But I do want to read the part about, the work that they did throughout the investigation. So this is 7/31/85, 14:20 hours. Remember, the incident took place on the 29th. So this is approximately 2 days later. Arrived at the Avery residence. So this is obviously the police report, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department follow-up report. Okay, so they arrived at the Avery residence, an old CTHY, I don't know what that stands for or means, and met with Lori Avery. Lori Avery permitted this officer to take a Polaroid photograph of her for display at the Green Bay Shopko store. Lori Avery displayed to this officer 1 gallon of Shopko brand paint, brown in color, which she stated was purchased at the Shopko store in Green Bay at approximately 1700 hours on the 29th, so the day in question. Lori stated that her husband, Steven, she, and the children were at the Shopko store in Green Bay at the time of the purchase, so all of them were there. Statement forms were left with Lori for her completion to be picked up at a later date. All right, so a little later that day, 15:10 hours, arrived at Shopko store located at 1819 Main Street in the city of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and met with Catherine L. Schroeder. Catherine is the assistant store manager. Catherine was interviewed with regard to Lori Avery's statement regarding the purchase of paint at this particular store. A written statement was obtained from Kathy Schroeder. Schroeder related that on Monday, the 29th, she was working at the Shopko store. She stated that at approximately 5 p.m. she was working near the back register of the store as they were busy. Schroeder stated that she remembers a customer going through Pat Lax's line and a comment being made about twin children. Schroeder stated she looked over and saw 4 or 5 children with a man and a woman. It appeared to Schroeder that the man and woman were together, so they were seen in the store together. The woman was holding a young child, and Schroeder stated she believed the woman made a comment that the baby was only 5 or 6 days old. Schroeder cannot remember what the people looked like and could not identify them. Statement attached. All right, so we know around 5 p.m. is the alleged time that Steven's there with his family. They had 5 children. They had 4 together and a stepson, I believe. You know what? Let's go back to that. You guys can see my screen here. Avery. oh, wait, what did I do with it? Oh, yeah, this is it. Okay, so I redid the family tree. So, oh, and please, before we get in even deeper, please don't forget to like and subscribe, comment if you haven't already subscribed. Please do so. Make sure the bell's on so that you get notifications for all the videos that are in this series and others that I like to do in wrongful convictions, about wrongful convictions. All right, so I did update this. I fixed it to say Barb Tadich because in my last stream I said, or it had said Dolores Avery on there, and because I copied it over, so I forgot to add that. So this is Steven Avery's sister, Barb Tadich, with Peter Dassey. She had 4 boys, and that's Brendan Dassey is the nephew who also went down for the crime of Teresa Halbach, and we'll get into him later. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys saw that this was updated. So we have Lori here, and they had a stepson, Jason, or Steven Avery has a stepson, Jason, through Lori Avery, and then they had 4 kids. The boys were twins, 2 daughters, and then a set of male twins. So here's where we left off. 1,629 hours. Arrived at 2472 Finger Road in the city of Green Bay and met with Patricia A. Lax. In a written statement, Lax related that she was on duty as a cashier at the Shopko East store on Monday, 7/29/85. Remember, Stephen had a bunch of errands that he ran with his family that morning. This is according to Lori Avery. He was with him. They ran a bunch of errands that morning with the kids, including these, the Shopko, this other, wherever they were, Shopko in Green Bay. So this is still Shopko. Okay. But they went to a bunch of different places, and then they went to the Avery auto salvage yard, the property of Steven Avery's parents, and they were he was pouring cement all day, and the kids and Lori were there and helping around the property and kids playing around. So, I mean, they were all there together all day long, and he was there at the time of when the crime was committed. So 16 eyewitnesses that can vouch for Stephen's alibi. Anyways, all right, so Lax stated that she was working the register, number 11, from 1,700 hours until approximately 1845 hours. Lax stated that while she was on that register, a family of 7 or 8 came through and bought a gallon of paint. The family consisted of a man, woman, 2 girls, and the rest boys, including a set of 6-day-old twin boys. Lax stated the woman told her the twins were only 6 days. Lax further related that the man and the woman were definitely together. Lax described the man as being approximately 5'6" to 5'8" tall, medium build, with an untrimmed beard and mustache. Remember, Penny's description is that he had a close shaved beard. So right there, we've got that different. She said 5'6" to 5'7", and she did say medium but stocky build, so that's a little bit different too, and medium length brown hair. So the other description was like sandy blonde hair for Gregory Allen's description, but now he's got medium length brown hair. I can't remember what else did they say about shaggy. They said his hair was shaggy, sandy colored hair. All right, so Lax remembered his hands having embedded grease. A photograph of Steven Avery and Lori Avery was displayed to Patricia Lax. Lax stated that the photograph of the man looks like the man who came into Shopko with the woman and the twins. So there you have it, an eyewitness that says, yes, I saw them around whatever time it was, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Lax stated, I'm pretty sure it's the same man, but not positive it's the same man. Lax stated that she did not recognize the photograph of the woman. All right, so written statement attached. This is now the 1st of August in 1985 at 9 o'clock in 15 at 9:15 in the morning. Sorry. So examined an obscene note for the presence of latent fingerprints. The piece of paper was treated with ninhydrin spray. I don't know. Never heard of that. Then steamed to develop the latent fingerprints. Several partial prints were developed on the obscene note. The note and fingerprint cards of Steven Avery, Bruno Frauenfeld, and Gregory Manthe. Isn't there a officer Frauenfeld? So is it the officer's fingerprints or no? Somebody else. Gregory Manthe were transported by this officer to the state crime lab for further analysis. The aforementioned items were hand-delivered to Stephen J. Harrington of the state crime lab. Harrington stated that he would examine the items as they are and would further treat them with silver nitrate in an attempt to further enhance the latent fingerprints. So this is just a written statement. We're not going to read through all the written statements, but this is a statement about a woman, the Catherine Schroeder, who had said that she saw the family. So that's just her written statement. She provided a copy of the receipt. This is Patricia Lax. Same thing. It's just identifying. So you're seeing that he has an alibi. He was there at 5 o'clock. So he was with his family. So that's lining up with what Lori said. So we're getting corroboration of Lori's account and I'm sure Steven's account of the day and how the day played out. All right, so now 11:15, Detective Conrad went to the residence of Lori and Steven Avery, at which time Lori Avery transferred her written statement to Detective Conrad. Lori was asked if the paint purchased in Green Bay at the Shopko store would be available for us to place in evidence. She stated it would. A little later, Lori Avery transferred the 1 gallon of paint of flax latex Magna Color paint to Detective Conrad. Detective Conrad then transferred the evidence to Captain Bell's, where it was placed into evidence. At 12 in the afternoon, Detective Conrad interviewed Alan K. Avery, father of Steven Avery. Alan Avery provided the following statement. On Monday, Steve Avery showed up at my place at around 11 o'clock. He was here for a short time, about 15 to 20 minutes. Then he went home to change clothes around 11:45. Steve and his family came back here, and Steve helped pour 10 yards of cement. He was handling the chute and edging. So not just was he here helping, but this is what he was doing specifically. A short time after 4 p.m., Steve and his family left for Green Bay. At about 7 p.m., Steve and his family came back here and stayed until about 9 p.m. His entire day has an alibi by multiple eyewitnesses. And it's starting to show. But I don't know how he still got convicted. All right, so the above statement was signed by Alan Avery and witnessed by Detective Lieutenant, is that L.N. Conrad? I don't know. Original statement is in the investigative file. At 12:20, Detective Conrad interviewed Charles Avery, the eldest brother of Stephen. Charles E. Avery provided the following written statement. This past Monday at around 11 a.m., my brother Steve Avery showed up at my dad's place. The cement truck came and Steve helped us pour cement. Steve's wife and kids were with him when he came. He stayed until 4 p.m. or a little after and left for Green Bay. Okay, so dad and brother and Lori all say this is where he was. The above statement was signed by Charles E. Avery in the presence of Detective Conrad. The original statement's enclosed. Okay. 12:25, Detective Conrad interviewed Earl Kevin Avery, youngest brother of Steven Avery. Earl Avery provided the following statement. So remember, okay, so Chuck and Earl. This is now Earl's statement, but we just read Chuck's and Alan's. Wrong one. Okay, here, where are we? Okay, so this is what Earl Avery says. Sometime during the late Monday, my brother Steve arrived with his family. While he was here, Steve helped my dad pour cement. I really don't know when he left, but he came back around 7 and waited for me. So again, still corroborating what other people are saying. He might not remember when he left, but everyone else is saying 4. So the above statement was signed by Earl and is in the file. Okay, Detective Conrad interviewed Eric Marvin Moen, employee of Alan Avery's salvage yard. Eric Moen provided the following statement to Detective Conrad. So this is a third party. He should be relatively neutral. I mean, he does work for Alan Avery, but at the same time, he doesn't really have anything to gain by lying to the police. So, just take that for what it is. All right. So, at 11 a.m., I arrived at Avery's salvage yard where I work. We got ready to lay cement around 10:30, 11. Steve and his family showed up to help pour cement. Steve was operating the cement chute and later helped with edging. Steve left around 4 p.m. and I think his family was with him. I know he left at 4 p.m. because it was about an hour before I left, which was 5 p.m. I didn't see Steve anymore that day. Statement is enclosed. Here is Lori Avery's statement. And it's kind of long. I'm debating whether I should read it, but yeah, okay. We'll read this statement. I'm not going to read anybody else's statements written, but since this is Lori Avery's, the wife of Steven, let's see what she has to say. So left the house around 8:45 to 9 a.m., stopped at Fleet Farm in Manitowoc to buy plaster. From there, we went to Shopco in Manitowoc. Steve and Jason, our son, went in. I stayed in the truck with the other kids. They went in to get paint. He came out and said the sale was off and he didn't want to pay that price. So we left there and went to Edgewater Mall to Kindy? I don't know, it's a store. So I could have my glasses fixed. Okay. I went in and Steve waited outside with the 5 kids. From Kindy, we went to Red Owl Mall in Two Rivers so I could get my pills filled. I ran into Wolf Snyder, dropped them off, went outside. Her handwriting is hard to read. This is why people should not write in cursive. Went outside to get money from Steve, went back into Red Owl, got 2 gallons of 2% milk and toilet paper, took the bag back out to the truck, went in to Snyder, got my pills, and we left for his dad's house, Alan Avery's. Got there around 11:15, left there to run home for diapers for the kids, and returned back by Alan's by 11:40. We stayed there until 3:45. Steve helped his dad pour cement from 1 to 3:30 p.m. Also helping were Lloyd Schur, Eric Moore, Chuck Stevens, Chuck Avery, and Zeman's cement driver was there. I was in the house with my children, Dolores Avery, Barb Avery, or Tadich now, and Rose Schur. We left Allen's around 3:45 for Green Bay. Steve said that he would take us out to eat, and I figured as long as we would be in Green Bay, we could check the Shopco down there and see if the paint was cheaper. We stopped at Burger King around 1. What does that say? 1 Whopper. Ordered 1 Whopper, 1 Whaler. I don't know what that is. 2 hamburgers and 2. Do we need to know your order? 2 sodas, 1 medium, 1 large. Something. Went to Shopgo. I took Rachel and one of the twins to the bathroom, and Steve had the other twin, Jenny and Jason, and I told him I would meet him by the paint. I met him. So they do separate in the store, like I said, because remember we had read in one of the things last episode that they didn't see them together. So I had said Steve could have been waiting in the car with kids, as they seem to have been doing this morning, because they were doing all sorts of running around, or they separated in the store. So that might be why you saw Lori and without Steve at some point in the day in one of these stores. So I told him I would meet him by the paint. I met him by the paint, and he wondered if he should or shouldn't get a gallon. He finally decided to get one. Okay, this is really wordy. Beech nut brown is the color. Like, why do we need to know that? And we went to check out. We were at cashier register number 11. The girl checking out commented on the baby I was carrying. And I told her his twin brother was in the cart. She couldn't believe it that we had 5 small kids. She said something about she was glad it wasn't her. Then she wished us the best of luck with them. After we left there, we went to the Shopko on the other side of town to be nosy. Is that what that says? To be nosy. Didn't buy anything and left. I don't know. Just maybe that's just her way of, like, we were just walking around, looking, shopping. I don't know. Stopped at the Spur gas station around 6:30, going on 7 p.m. Got $20 worth of gas and left for home. She is very specific in all of her details. But it's helpful because, I mean, being more specific, you can corroborate those details. So the more details that she provides, the more police, law enforcement in their investigation can corroborate that these things are accurate or not. They can determine if she is lying. But usually people who add more detail are often telling the truth. We made one last stop at his dad's house, got there around 7:30 p.m. to see if his brother, Earl, wanted to spend the night and help Steve plaster. We left Allen's about 9 p.m. and went home. We did not leave anymore that night and went to bed at 11. At about 11:45 or so, we had heard the dog barking. I got up, looked out our bedroom window, and saw someone walking into the garage. Told Steve, and he got up and put his shorts on. While he was doing that, I heard someone call from downstairs. I answered with, "Who's there?" And he replied, It's me, Arlen, Steve's uncle." He asked if Steve was at home, and I said yes. So they just walked into his house. He asked if he could talk to him, and Steve then went downstairs. I went back into the bedroom to put on my house coat. My house coat. Who says that anymore? And I heard a man's voice say to Steve that he was under arrest for attempted first-degree unaliving. I heard the handcuffs go on, and they read him his rights. I came downstairs and asked the officer what was going on, and he said Steve was being arrested. When I asked what the charge was, he told me he could not say, and that I was to call the sheriff's department in the morning. I then looked at Steve, and he said, "They say I tried to end someone's life." I then told him not to worry, and I would call his lawyer in the morning, and I kissed him goodbye, and they left with Steve. Knowing now that Steve ended up, this is Alan Avery's statement. We're not going to read it, but it's basically corroborating everything. Here's Charles. Here's Earl. Eric Marvin Moen, who was the employee. So all of their witness statements that corroborate what Steven and his family, had said regarding his alibi. And with everything that Lori had put in there, like all those details, it surprises me still that he was found guilty. But sometimes you gotta have a scapegoat, I guess. So this is another report. and this is from 8-1. I'm not going to read through all of it, but basically the call, Penny Beernsten started getting nasty prank phone calls at her house. So the following is a phone conversation to the best recollection of Penny Beernsten. She says, "Hello, hello." He says, "What are you doing?" She says, "Who is this?" It says, "Tom. Who do you want?" Tom's her husband, remember. And then the caller says, "I want you." Penny hung up at that time. And then what is this? Following are questions about the case directed to Penny. So now she's asking her more questions about the actual incident here. So following are questions directed to Penny by Deputy Dvorak. Remember, we went over Dvorak. She is good friends with the cousin, Sherry, that Steve Avery is feuding with. So she asks, "How long do you think it was from the time that he dragged you off and assaulted you until you got help?" Answer, I remember being there a long time, sitting in the sun and looking at my BLOODY hands. I remember my body couldn't do as well as my mind. What do you remember about the jacket? It seemed very heavy. I think he had a shirt. The jacket was black or dark brown. It had snaps, the color of the jacket. It didn't look new. I recall pockets on the bottom. The pockets were plain with no stitching. The jacket possibly had a band and was close-fitting at the waist. What do you remember about the pants? I think he had a belt on his pants. I can't remember the color of his pants. I think they were faded blue jeans with a front zipper. Remember, Steven was wearing shorts that day, like cut-off shorts or something. How old do you think he was? I thought his age was closer to 30. She said 30, 35 in an earlier interview with Dvorak, and at this point in time, Steven Avery's like 19. So, big age difference there. She says, "What do you remember about facial features, complexion, skin, teeth?" She says, "His hair didn't seem particularly oily. He was scuzzy. I don't recall the teeth." What does scuzzy mean? Like, describe what made you think you thought that he was scuzzy. I don't know. If he had shaved, he would have had more of a rugged complexion. All right. So did he have anything on his hands? Grease, oil, cement, manure? He bruised my chest. I was amazed how strong his grip was. His hands were not particularly rough or have an odor. He was clean smelling and didn't have an odor. I don't remember an odor or have any recollection of one. I'm a mouth breather and can't pick up odors well. Okay. But she said he was clean, so she didn't notice dirty hands or oily hands, because we said Stephen always had greasy hands from working in the shop working with his dad at the salvage yard. All right, so when you were near him, could you tell if he smoked or had clean teeth? She says, "I don't like smoking, but I got no impression that he smoked. I have trouble remembering his teeth." Did he have liquor on his breath, or was he dopey from drugs? No, I smelled no liquor. He seemed to know what he wanted to do. Did he basically hold you with his right or left hand? With his right hand, can't remember too much. Did he have a weapon? I think he said, "I have a knife." Then he got my top off. He said, "I have a knife. Do what I tell you." I really didn't know if he had a knife because he never produced it. Okay. Did he ever hesitate? I didn't know if he had second thoughts because he didn't have, this is really hard to read, have any more than half an erection. He said, "Make it hard," and he said, "Make it hard," and he never really got hard. On more than one occasion during this time, he said, "You are really screwing this up and really effing this up." I don't recall him taking off my bottom. When he left, I tried to run and fell over. I remember sitting and looking at the BLOOD on my hands and looking at the time, it was 5:30 p.m. and thought I had to get home. I saw a guy on the crest of the dunes. He had a red t-shirt and was of medium build. I don't remember if he looked toward me. He just kept walking. He had on a swimsuit or short shorts. When we were in the dunes, he told me to lie down and take my pants off and spread my legs, or he would kill me. When we were going towards the woods, and he was undoing my top. This is so hard to read because of the faded. If it's hard for you guys, it's hard for me too. So, went into the woods. He started undoing my top. He said, "Do what I tell you. I have a knife." "Where did you get the bruises on your breast?" He had his mouth on my right breast, and there is a small bruise. "Did he punch you or hurt you?" He said he just sucked on my breast. I expected him to be rougher, especially after he started hitting me. "Did you say anything to him?" When he said, "Put your mouth on my penis," I said no. Yeah, I would say no too. "I'll do it with my hand." He said, "Then do it." This line across here. He We were still standing at that time. Then he pulled my pants down part way. He touched me first in the crotch. Then he put me. I apologize for the language here. I didn't know that it was going to be so. I mean, but the topic is awful, so it's going to be graphic. Maybe I should have my trigger warning. Graphic content. Graphic descriptions here. All right, so he touched me first in the crotch, and then he had his hand down there and said, "Play with yourself." Then he said, "Lie down on the ground." At that time, I cooperated and lied down. When I had my hand on his penis, I said, "My husband is going to be looking for me." He said, "You're screwing everything up." Did you try to fight when he first grabbed you?" Yes, I was twisting and trying to get away. He had me by the shoulders and arms, and I couldn't get away. When we were by the trees, I think he said he had a knife. "Do what I say." I think I yelled out toward a sailboat with the sails down. I hollowed, "Help! Somebody help me!" Hollered. They were too far out to hear me, and I couldn't see the people on the boat. When he took me to the dunes, he said, "Shut up, we're going to take a walk." Did you or do you at any time think that he had an orgasm or any secretions? She says, "I don't think so. I worry about that because this was the worst time of my cycle for me, and I get pregnant very easily." Sheriff Kosarik came at this time and put a tap on the phone. This is a second statement of the incident of the assault of Penny Beernsten, which occurred on Monday, July 29th, as related to Deputy Dvorak. Starting from okay, I'm not reading this anymore. This is just really too hard to read. But this is her second statement. I really wish I could read. Maybe I can make it darker somehow and read it in another episode. But she does sign it, as you can see. How long is it? It's just so hard to read. It's 2 pages. Yeah, it's over 2 pages. I don't want to read it because it's so hard on my eyes, and it's hard for you guys to hear me struggling through the words. So I'm not going to read the rest of that. Let's see. Detective Conrad interviewed Charles M. Steffen, friend of Alan Avery. Charles Steffen provided the following statement to Detective Conrad. This past Monday, I arrived at Avery's at 12:05 to help Al pour cement. A short time after 1 p.m., the cement truck arrived. The guys on the crew were myself, Al, and Steve Lloyd. I don't know his last name, and Eric. I and Eric were striking off. Steve was on the chute, and Al and Lloyd were spreading the cement. I stayed at Avery's until 4 p.m. Steve was still there when I left because he drove his 4x4 down to the pit through a puddle. The above statement was signed by Charles. Okay. Alan Avery showed Detective Conrad the area where the cement was poured. Sorry. Needed a hydration break. So, I mean, there's even concrete proof that there was cement poured here. And they showed the sheriff or the detective. So he's just explaining all the different slabs, other individuals that were there. What does that say? Alan Avery stated that other individuals who were there at his place when the cement was poured were Lloyd Scherer, who has no telephone and address is unknown, Alan, along with his wife Rose. Other individuals were Pete Dassey, so that is Barb Avery's, the father of her children, who is Pete Dassey's girlfriend. Yes, Barb Avery's Pete Dassey's girlfriend, I guess, at the time, and then Al Avery's daughter, Lloyd and Judy Blank, and Marvin Mott. So a bunch of people were there. So there were at least 16 eyewitnesses that saw Steven. They also attempted to get a hold of an employee from the Zeman Cement Company to corroborate that Steven was there. Don Sigler told him he did not really know Steve Avery and only knew of Al Avery's salvage yard over the past year, so he stated he is not a close friend or relative of the Avery, so he doesn't know if Steven Avery was there. But still, all these other people did. So these are all written statements. Not, well, that one was. A search was commenced of area as indicated on rough sketch map drawn by Deputy Freudenfeld. 4 sweeps were made. Also, what are they looking for? I don't know. So that was part of their investigation, I guess, was looking for more evidence in the dunes and in the wooded area. Preparation was made this date for a live lineup. So this is the 1st of August live lineup to include the suspect Steve Avery. The lineup was scheduled for 4:15 at the Manitowoc County Sheriff's with a representative from the Public Defender's Office. At approximately 4:15, those present at the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department for the lineup included the District Attorney Dennis Vogel, a representative from the Public Defender's Office, the victim Penny Beernsten, and her husband Tom, and also myself, Sheriff Kosarek. A lineup of 8 subjects was prepared in our lineup viewing room, and the victim Penny Beernsten, along with her husband, the district attorney, and the representative from the public defender's office were in the viewing room adjacent to the lineup room. A one-way glass separated the 2 rooms so that the victim was able to view the lineup without the participants of the lineup being able to see her. The 8 subjects involved in the lineup were arranged in order. The victim of the attempted crime viewed the 8 persons in the lineup. 8 persons in the lineup were as follows: Fred Berry, Jesse Buchholz, Terry Tim, we don't know any of these people, and they don't really matter, and the suspect, Steve Avery, and some other people. The victim viewed the 8 suspects in the lineup and indicated by placing a check mark after subject number 6, Avery, so she identified Avery, basically, during this photo lineup, but as we know, she already saw a sketch, which was basically I made in likeness of a picture of Steven Avery that already existed. And so she saw that sketch first and said, yeah, that kind of looks like him. And then they showed her a photo lineup with the same exact picture of Steven Avery. Here, let's actually look at it because we talked about that too. So that was this guy. Chief Deputy Eugene Couchet, made this sketch. He's never sketched. He's not a police sketch artist. He just decided one day, I'm gonna sketch suspects, and this is what he did. This was his composite, and he had it framed right next to the image of Steven Avery that he basically based it off of. As you can see, like hair, everything, beard, the same. So she saw that first. Then she saw a photo lineup with the photo of Steven. And then now in the photo lineup, she chose Steven again because that image was falsely placed into her memory, basically. And Penny to this day said, like, she could have sworn she was correct in who she chose in the lineups. She honestly believed that that was her perpetrator, but it's because of the way that the interrogation or the interviews were handled with Judy Dvorak, the way that she assigned blame to Steven Avery immediately. They focused on him from the very start, and for that reason, a proper investigation wasn't done, and false memories were being implanted into the victim, Penny Beernsten, by showing her these images and saying, oh, that sounds just like Steven Avery, being so sure about it, because that's what Judy Dvorak said. You're supposed to remain neutral until you find someone that does fit that. Anyways, but police officer, whatever. All right, so let's move on to... They took photographs, blah, blah, blah. So this stuff is really not as important as... so they did find the swimsuit. Look by searching. This stuff, we're going to skip the rest of this. This is investigative stuff, but we'll get to that a little later. So this is... Remember at the very end of episode 1, I ended it reading a kind of a motion or a notice recommendation to reopen the case into the Penny Beernsten case, reopen it, look at suspects again, because we don't think you did a good job. And this was coming from the DOJ. Sarah, what's her name? Deborah Strauss. Why can't my mouth say the words that I'm trying? Autoimmune diseases, guys, they're fun. My boyfriend also is having, he's struggling with an autoimmune disease, but he got his, he's been diagnosed with his later than mine, so I've been struggling with this more. So one of the issues is you can't remember words. So you'll be sitting there talking, you'll be like, remember the thing on the thing? Remember we watched that episode with the thing and the person who was there? Like, you can't remember nouns. You can't remember anything. And you switch out words for other things. So you'll be saying like the washing machine, but you really meant the dishwasher or something. Like you just, I've been doing this for years now because of my autoimmune disease. It's really difficult to talk, as you can maybe see from my reading. So I apologize if I am not the best reader. I try to slow down, and I think I'm a little bit better, but it's just hard with my autoimmune. So I apologize. Public service announcement: autoimmune diseases, they're rough. All right, so so this is a records examination activity report for the Penny Beernsten case with Steven Avery. So on Monday, September 22nd, 2003, remember, he's still sitting in prison up until that point, Deborah K. Strauss met with Manitowoc County Sheriff Kenneth J. Peterson. During this meeting, Strauss told Sheriff Peterson, the Attorney General's office, that has been asked to review the events which occurred between Penny Beernsten on 7/29/1985 through the Steven Avery arrest and prosecution. So we need to reevaluate what happened. Let's investigate what happened and look at it. Strauss assured Sheriff Peterson the Attorney General's office was not going to reinvestigate the crime. Okay, but we still need to take a look at it, I think. we need to review it. SA, I don't know what that SA stands for. Must be like a title or something. I don't know. So Strauss asked Sheriff Peterson for a copy of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. All right. So Strauss asked Sheriff Peterson for a copy of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department case file regarding the assault and subsequent investigation. Sheriff Peterson went to his safe because that is where he thought the entire case file was being kept. Why would he have it in a safe? That's odd. Sheriff Peterson pulled out a small stack of documents regarding Avery and Gregory Allen, who is the actual perpetrator of the crime. Sheriff Peterson then went to a second location and obtained the entire case file regarding the assault and conviction. Sheriff Peterson said he would be willing to provide Strauss with a copy of the documents in the safe, but Sheriff Peterson would need time to have the case file copied. Sheriff Peterson would not release the case file to Strauss because it is a policy to the Sheriff's Department that the case files need to stay in-house. The following is a list of the documents which were being maintained in a safe in the office of Sheriff Peterson and provided to Strauss. The first document was an affidavit of Michael Ernest Lucero. This affidavit is dated 6/14/2000. As part of the affidavit, Lucero states that while he was an inmate at the Green Bay Correctional Institution, he met Steve Avery. During one of Lucero's conversations with Avery, Avery admitted to R-ing a woman on the beach in Manitowoc County. Okay. The next document examined by Strauss was a statement of James Link. The statement is dated 2003. This statement was regarding a conversation Lieutenant Link had with Sergeant Colburn regarding a phone call Sergeant Colburn had received from Brown County. We talked about this in the last episode. The person from Brown County was talking to Sergeant Colburn because Brown County had a person in custody who stated that a few years prior he committed an assault in Manitowoc County, and that being the one of Penny Beernsten. The third document examined by Strauss was a one-page statement signed by Sergeant Andrew Colburn. This statement was prepared on 9/12/2003. According to this statement, in 1994 or 1995, Sergeant Colburn was working as a corrections officer in the Manitowoc County Jail. While working as the corrections officer, Sergeant Colburn received a call from a man who identified himself as a detective from outside the Manitowoc County area. The detective stated he had received information that a person in their custody had been commenting that he had committed the crime on Penny in Manitowoc County and someone else was in jail for it. But this statement wasn't prepared until 2003, but the call happened in 94 or 95. So they're covering their butts here. Well, they need to, because they need to account for why there was no statement there. The next document examined by Strauss is dated 9/12/2003. This document is a memo on Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department letterhead and is addressed to all department personnel. The memo is from Sheriff Kenneth Peterson. This memo states that employees shall make no comments concerning the Steven Avery case. All news releases shall be issued by either Sheriff Peterson or Inspector Herman. Another document examined by Strauss was a press release by Mark Rohrer. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Rohrer. That's hard to say. Manitowoc County District Attorney. This press release is regarding the release of Steven Avery. This press release states that according to DNA test results, Gregory Allen had actually committed the SA and attempted homicide on Penny, and it was not Steven. The final set of documents examined by Strauss were master lookup files dated 9/10/2003 and 9/12/2003. The printout, which was prepared on the 10th, was regarding Steven Avery. The master lookup files dated 9/12/2003 were regarding Gregory Allen. A copy of all previously mentioned documents can be found in the main case file. So there you have it. Those were some documents that the DOJ was investigating from the sheriff's office. And now we're going to read as much as we can of this. I know it's a long one, but I think it's interesting. So this is correspondence/memorandum, December 17th, 2003. To Mark Rohrer, District Attorney, Manitowoc County, from Peggy Lutenschlager, I think, Attorney General. So that's the Attorney General is writing to the District Attorney. So this is an official Department of Justice document. Subject: Avery Review. Purpose: the Wisconsin Department of Justice evaluated the facts and circumstances of the 1985 investigation and prosecution of Steven Avery, who was convicted of attempted first-degree unaliving, first-degree SA, and false imprisonment on December 14, 1985. In September 2003, 18 years after Avery commenced his prison term, DNA testing exonerated Avery and implicated another person, Gregory Allen. The department's goal was to assess what, if any, errors occurred during the investigation and prosecution of Avery's case and whether any criminal or ethical violations were committed by anyone involved in handling the case. Summary of facts. On July 29, 1985, PB, so our victim, was jogging on the beach north of Two Rivers, Manitowoc County, when she was abducted, brutally beaten, and SA'd at knife point. After the assault, PB was taken to the hospital where Manitowoc County Sheriff's deputies interviewed her. PB provided a physical description of her assailant. She also assisted Chief Deputy Jean Couchet from the Sheriff's Department in developing a hand-drawn composite picture of her assailant. Once the investigators were given a physical description and while the composite was being created, Sheriff Tom Kosirik asked that members of the Sheriff's Department put together a photo array. PB reviewed the composite picture when it was completed and a short time later reviewed the photo array displayed by Sheriff Kosirik. She identified Steven Avery as her assailant. 3 days later, on August 1st, 1985, PB again misidentified Avery as her assailant from a live lineup. Based on PB's initial identification of Avery as her assailant, Avery was arrested and charged with first-degree SA, attempted first-degree unaliving, and false imprisonment. The arrest took place within 8 hours of the assault. And I'm telling you now that when someone is arrested within hours of a crime, unless you actually have them on video doing the crime, then it was not investigated. There was not a proper investigation because you can't even get test results back that fast in 8 hours. I mean, come on. What? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, they didn't do any of the interviews of the family until after he was already arrested. So keep that in mind too. He was arrested the night of. And the interviews with his family took place days later. All the corroborating alibi eyewitness evidence that we have in this case took place after the arrest. And the cops never are going to be like, oh, well, we made a mistake. Let's just drop the charges. No. That's what they should have done, but that's not what they did. All right, so a trial was held before the Honorable Judge Fred H. Hazelwood in December 1985. The prosecutor was Manitowoc County District Attorney Dennis Vogel. Defense counsel was James Bolgert, who took over the case from Assistant Public Defender Risa Evans in late October 1985. Avery had 16 alibi witnesses as to his whereabouts on the day of the assault. However, he was convicted of the crimes and sentenced to a total of 32 years in prison. In September 2003, the results of a second round of DNA tests on pubic hairs obtained after the 1985 assault were received. These tests revealed that Avery was not the perpetrator of the crimes. Avery was released from prison on September 11th, 2003. Again, that was 18 years after the crime, and he should not have served any time for the crime, let alone 18 years. Gregory Allen, whose DNA matched that of the hair, is serving a 60-year sentence for an essay that he committed in Green Bay in 1995. He also is known to have committed similar crimes on the very same beach where he committed the crime on Penny. Yet his name wasn't even on a suspect list. So that makes no sense to me. Moving on September 18th, 2023, current Manitowoc County District Attorney Mark Rohr requested that the Wisconsin Department of Justice conduct an independent review, and the department agreed. 2 special agents from the Division of Criminal Investigation, Amy Lehman and Deb Strauss, conducted the investigation. This report is based on interviews with the victim, the sheriff, deputy sheriff involved in the investigation, former Manitowoc County District Attorney Dennis Vogel, personnel who worked in Vogel's office at the time of the prosecution, officers from the Manitowoc and Two Rivers Police Departments, and defense counsel handling Avery's case in the trial court. So they interviewed a lot of people to get this document, this report put together. The department has also reviewed files from the sheriff's department, files of the prosecutor and defense attorneys handling the case, the transcripts from the Avery's proceedings, including the trial and appellate records, and numerous police reports from the sheriff's department and the Manitowoc and Two Rivers police departments. This report examines the critical points of the investigation and prosecution of Avery's case. So this is breaking down the case. What went wrong? He had a concrete alibi, pouring cement at his parents' house, at his dad's property. They poured multiple slabs of cement that day. There's proof of it. They showed it to the police shortly thereafter, days after. So, and 16 eyewitnesses. So, here are the problems with the investigation that put an innocent man in prison for 18 years. After PB was transported to the hospital, she participated in creating a composite sketch of her assailant with Chief Sheriff's Deputy Jean Couchet. The composite drawing was completed at 10:20 p.m., approximately 6 hours after the assault occurred. So 6 hours after the assault occurred, they have a composite sketch. 2 hours from now, Steven Avery will be arrested based on an eyewitness testimony or sketch, an eyewitness pointing the finger at him. Granted, she is the one who saw him, and granted, she is the one who was there. But we know now that false memories happen. And just because someone might look similar, you really have to be careful, in your descriptions and your composite drawings, because it was someone who had also long hair, facial hair, wore his hair kind of scraggly. So it just depends, by putting that image in front of Penny immediately based on the likeness of Steven, you put that memory in her that that's what he looked like, in my opinion. And maybe I will do a separate episode just on implanting false memories. I think that would be interesting to research that and put that together. So maybe I will do a little bonus episode on that. I think that's a good idea. But anyways, so let's get back to this report. At a suppression hearing, Deputy Couchet testified that before he did the drawing, a name was given to him as a suspect. However, he did not have any personal recollection of the individual and had no mental image of him at the time of the drawing. So he knew that Steven Avery was a suspect. He could have looked at case files. He could have looked at images. He could have absolutely had a picture in front of him and like an actual like picture, not electronic, and from a case file, and did a composite drawing from that. We don't know. The department has not uncovered any information challenging the integrity of the composite, it says. All right, so the photo array. Issues involving the photo array were addressed in Avery's first appeal. Let me get a footnote. The department was not asked to review the two appeals in this case. However, review of the briefs and decisions in those cases do not indicate any impropriety or failures on the part of the parties or courts involved. An appellate court's review is limited. It only considers the arguments raised by the parties and cannot act as the fact finder on the issue of guilt. The state's arguments and the court's conclusions on appeal were consistent with controlling legal standards. Okay. So, nothing really. That was not that big of a deal. All right, so issues involving the photo array were addressed in Avery's first appeal. While the photo array was not perfect, it met applicable legal standards and does not demonstrate any misconduct on the part of the sheriff's department. Sheriff Kucerik told investigators that he did not know Avery at the time, but that after PB gave a physical description of her assailant, someone said that the description sounded like Avery. Deputy Sheriff Judy Dvorak had been called to the hospital to take a statement from PB, and the department's review indicates that it was Dvorak who made the comment that the description sounded like Avery. It was because of this statement that Kucerik asked that Avery's photo be included in the photo array. So he wouldn't have even been in there, most likely, if it weren't for Judy Dvorak saying, oh yeah, that sounds like Steven. The photo array, and we know Judy Dvorak did not like Steven, so she has motive to put the blame on him if she wanted to. The photo array was conducted at approximately 10:20 p.m. After completion of the composite drawing. The sheriff laid out 9 photographs on a table tray at the side of PB's hospital bed. Avery was somewhere in the middle of the array. After PB chose Avery as her assailant, the sheriff told her he was going to apprehend the suspect. In an unpublished decision of the Court of Appeals dated August 5th, 1987, the court reviewed Avery's challenges to the identification procedure, namely the photo array and the live lineup. Avery contended that the photo array was impermissibly suggestive because the sheriff testified that he put the array together and that he told PB that, quote, there was a chance that the suspect might be in there and that she should look at them and attempt to determine if, in fact, he was. So there's also a chance that he wasn't. But you saying that there's a chance that he is putting that thought in her mind that he is there. Meaning that she has to pick someone. She also has the choice to say, none of these guys look like the guy. But they don't want that answer. They want her to pick Steven. And she just saw the composite that looks just like his photo here. So the court relying on, did you read that all? Yeah. The court relying on Fells and State, Wisconsin, 1974, concluded that the sheriff's statement standing alone did not render the procedure impermissibly suggestive. The statement did no more than tell the victim what was already implied by conducting a photo array, that is, that the attacker's picture might be included. The court also examined photographs from both the photo array and the live lineup. With regard to the array, the court stated the pictures in the photo array display individuals who correspond to the description given by PB, and who so closely resemble one another that Avery does not stand out from them. In fact, the photo array constitutes one of the fairest ones this court has seen. The array did not include a picture of Gregory Allen. That is a problem that we know of. He should have been a suspect based on his previous crimes on that same beach, 2 women with the same kind of MO. So he should have been a suspect in the live lineup and the photo array, but he was never even brought up. Avery challenged so this is the live lineup. Avery challenged the legitimacy of the lineup in the appeal discussed above. A suppression hearing revealed the following circumstances surrounding the lineup. Avery was the only person in both the photo array and the live lineup. Assailant public defender Stephanie Stoltzman was present during the lineup. The lineup was conducted 3 days after the assault. Stoltzman testified that after District Attorney Vogel positioned the participants, he asked Stoltzman if the lineup was okay, and Stoltzman requested that some of the participants be moved in order to get a closer height, age, and coloration range. After they were repositioned, BP was led into the room, which adjoined the room containing the lineup and had a one-way mirror for viewing the participants. At some point, Stoltzman requested that PB's husband not talk to her during her observation and that he step away from her. There were 8 males who participated. Stoltzman stated that Avery appeared to be the youngest, the fairest, and the shortest of the participants. A few of the people were fairly well dressed. One of the participants looked at Avery during one of the lineups. And that's weird. Or during most of the lineup. Oh, so one of the participants in the lineup was looking at Avery during most of the lineup. So that is sus. All right, so suspect is suspicious. PB testified that no one suggested to her whom to pick out during either the photo array or the lineup. At the suppression hearing, PB testified that there was nothing any of the participants did in the live lineup that suggested to her that the person to pick out was Avery or that drew attention to Avery. After she picked out Avery, she went to the sheriff's office where she was told that the person she had picked in the lineup was the person that they had in custody based on the photo identification. Kucerik testified at the suppression hearing that in choosing the people for the live lineup, he looked for people with full beards and mustaches and people close in height to Avery, which was difficult because he was quite short. He believed 3 of the people in the live lineup were very close to Avery's height. He also believed that at some point PB was told they had arrested a suspect and that the suspect would be in the lineup. However, she was never told that the person she picked from the photo array would be in the lineup. The lineup contained one other individual who had a history of this type of crime, but it was not Allen. So nobody with those types of crimes were even in there except for one other person. You should put like other suspects, people that have prior history that would make you think they might have committed this crime. Avery really didn't have a sexually deviant history, only other than what Sherry's rumors were all about. She tried to say that he was flashing himself and letting the public see his full glory all the time. But he denies all of that. So it's a he said, she said. So you can't really take a whole lot of credibility in it. Anyway, so, and he was never charged for anything in that regard. He was never caught doing anything. He was never charged for flashing or public indecency. On appeal, Avery alleged that the lineup was suggestive because he was the only person who was in the photo, both the photo array and the lineup, and because he was the youngest, fairest, and shortest person in the lineup, and was the only one with straight hair. He also contended that some of the other participants were well dressed and that one participant turned toward him during most of the lineup. That's weird. The Court of Appeal, so maybe it was like a plant in the police station. One of the police officers or something trying to get her to like pick him. So he just stared at Avery the whole time. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying the cops did that, but it could happen. We've seen crazier things. The Court of Appeals concluded that the photographs of the lineup revealed that as a group, the participants reasonably resembled Avery in terms of age, hair color, complexion, size, and manner of dress. In addition, like Avery, all of the participants had beards and mustaches. Based on the pictures of the lineup, the court concluded that the police secured a fair and balanced presentation of alternative possibilities of identification. Avery also argued that even if the identifications were admissible, PB's identification of him was not sufficient to negate his alibi defense. Correct, I think. He had so many people saying where he was. The court rejected that argument based on well-established Wisconsin law indicating that the eyewitness testimony of a victim is sufficient to sustain a conviction even absent corroborating evidence. That may be so, but it still doesn't negate the fact that the police were doing things that might be suggestive. So she might, her witness identification alone might be enough to put him in jail and to get the conviction, but that doesn't mean that in her time of trauma, when she was, they're talking to her when this first happens to her. It's traumatizing. She can't remember. They're putting, they might be suggesting ideas. They might have, like Dvorak said, this looks like Steven. So she went with that, and the whole police department went with that. So the Court of Appeals further stated, moreover, in this case, PB's identification could be deemed by the jury to be particularly convincing based on the testimony indicating that she had ample opportunity to view him, that she consciously determined to get a good look at him, that her initial description substantially matched Avery's appearance, and that only 6.5 hours passed between the assault and the initial identification. So there's nothing to indicate that the live lineup was unduly suggestive or otherwise improper. As with the photo array, the lineup did not include Gregory Allen, the actual perpetrator, who should have been a suspect in this crime. All right, so the decision to arrest and charge Avery while failing to consider Allen as a suspect. Avery was a reasonable suspect. Sure, he was. But that doesn't mean you stop your investigation right then and there and say, oh, yep, that's the guy. No, you investigate. You ask people about his alibi. You look at other suspects. You don't just zero in on him and say, this is our dude. But what do I know? I'm not law enforcement. So at the time of PB's assault, the sheriff's department was familiar with Avery from an incident that had occurred only 6 months earlier, in January 1985, in which Avery ran a deputy sheriff's wife off the road at gunpoint and told her to get in his car. Not just a sheriff's wife, but it was his cousin, who he was having a long, ongoing feud, and he wanted her to stop spreading rumors about him. So he says, and she says, he ran her off the road and pointed a gun, which he doesn't deny. So he did his crime. He did his time for that part. The woman told him that she had her baby in the vehicle and that the baby would freeze. After checking to see if the child was in fact in the car, Avery let the woman go. He confessed to the crime and stated that he had done this because the woman had been making allegations that he appeared naked in his front yard on several occasions. Avery was ultimately convicted of endangering safety for this offense and was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment concurrent with the sentence in the assault against PB. District Attorney Vogel told investigators that he assumed that the January incident involving Avery was sexually motivated. Avery was also convicted in Manitowoc County in 1981 on 2 counts of burglary, for which he received 5 years of probation, and was convicted in 1982 for cruelty to animals. And we talked about those, and we won't get more in depth with that. Those cases were not handled by Vogel, but by assistant prosecutors in this office. The sheriff's department's suspicions regarding Avery were bolstered following PB's positive identification of Avery as her assailant in both the photo array and live lineup. Suspicions were further validated by Avery's statement to his wife upon arrest that he was being accused of murdering a girl, although no one had identified the victim as female, and the fact that Avery's alibi was that he had been pouring cement all day, but his clothes tested negative for the presence of any cement dust. Facts undermining Avery as the assailant, all of which the jury heard, included 16 alibi witnesses and the fact that Shopko employees and receipts confirmed that he was at the Shopko in Green Bay at 5:13 p.m., only an hour and 15 minutes after the assault near Two Rivers. Sheriff's deputies did a timed drive from the location of the assault north of Two Rivers to the Green Bay Shopko. They were able to go through the checkout line 57 minutes after leaving the crime scene, but the officers admitted that they went 10 miles per hour over the speed limit to reach those numbers, and the officers did not account for potential delays resulting from the presence of 5 children, including 6-day-old twins, all of whom were seen with Avery and his wife at the Shopko. It was almost like she took him out to these stores to like show him off. So I would have just left him in the car. Like, how much work would that be to get all 5 kids in and out, in and out? Moreover, the reenactment did not allow any time for picking up Avery's family and would therefore assume that Avery's wife and 5 children were at the beach somewhere or in the car while he committed the assault. Nonetheless, because of PB's positive identification of Avery as her assailant on several occasions, Avery's semi-incriminating statement of his wife, I don't think that's very incriminating, but whatever, what was his, I can't remember now, his uncle's name, but he might have told him that's what he was being charged for, unaliving a woman, not just unaliving, period. They might have told him. So we don't know that. Both Vogel and Kosarik told investigators that they were convinced at the time of trial that Avery had committed the assault against PB, particularly in light of PB's positive identification. Allen was also a viable suspect. Both the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office should have been on notice that Allen was a reasonable suspect in the 1985 assault. Sheriff Department's knowledge of Allen. With regards to the Sheriff's Department, the department's review reveals the following. The sheriff's file contained information regarding the potential suspects, but the file does not suggest that they are seriously considered. The file includes a letter from defense attorney Bolgert to Kosarik asking him to investigate 1BG as a suspect. It also includes information regarding 4 other individuals. However, it is unclear how many were considered real suspects. One of the men was included in the lineup. Fingerprint cards of Avery and 2 other individuals were transported to the state crime laboratory. In addition, the file contains information indicating that 3 of the men had been cleared. There is no information regarding an investigation into Allen, although a criminal complaint against Allen from a 1983 lewd and lascivious case signed by Vogel was in the sheriff's file. This case is discussed in more detail below. Okay. So moreover, reports from the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department indicate that on December 15th, 1983, the Sheriff's Department had information, so this is 2 years prior to the incident with Penny. The Sheriff's Department had information that Allen would expose himself and do things in front of children. I'm not going to say what. Allen was also a chief suspect in a unaliving of a 15-year-old girl in North Carolina on June 16, 1975. Detective Conrad of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department had this information and gave it to the detective Thomas Bergner of the Manitowoc Police Department. Bergner is now the Manitowoc Deputy Police Chief. Manitowoc Deputy Police Chief Thomas Bergner told investigators that he was working for the Manitowoc Police Department in 1985 and that all jurisdictions were very territorial at that time and did not like to share information or contact other agencies regarding investigations they were working on. Despite this relationship, shortly after the investigation began, Bergner went to Kosarik and discussed the 1985 assault against PB. Bergner asked if Kosarik knew about Allen. Kosarik told Bergner that Allen had been ruled out as a suspect. Bergner got the impression that Kosarik knew about Allen and Allen's history. Kosarik told investigators that he did not recall such an incident. He further stated that in 1985 he was not aware of Allen and did not think anyone else in the sheriff's department was. Bergner believed that Allen should have been considered a suspect because he was a suspect in other assault SAs around that time. Allen was a suspect of an attempted SA on July 14, 1985 in Manitowoc, 2 weeks prior to the assault against PB. Allen was never charged in that matter because there was insufficient evidence. PB told investigators that within weeks of the assault, she received a telephone call from someone at the Manitowoc Police Department. That individual told her that they had someone in mind that matched the description of her assailant and that the subject was not Avery. Police asked PB if she ever noticed anyone watching her while she was at home, watching her at the YMCA, where she worked, or simply following her around. PB had in fact received harassing phone calls following her assault even after Avery was arrested. Many of the phone calls were of a sexual nature, some of which occurred 5 minutes after she would return from home, indicating she might be being watched. Such post-crime contact and stalking behavior was consistent with Allen's past offense history. So he is known to have done those things, and yet they wanted to blame Allen. And they were going on after Allen was in prison. So... so dumb. Okay. So PB contacted the sheriff's department and believed she spoke directly to Sheriff Kosarik. PB asked if there was another suspect and relayed the contents of the phone call from the Manitowoc Police Department. She was told the sheriff's department would contact the police department and that she would not worry about this call because the sheriff's department had jurisdiction over this case. Kosarik told investigators he did not recall such a conversation with PB. All right. Had the sheriff's department reviewed police reports from the Manitowoc Police Department, the following information would have been discovered, making Allen a prime suspect in the assault against PB. Allen had been convicted of an aggravated offense as a juvenile. The Manitowoc Police Department file contained a police report from the Two Rivers Police Department regarding a crime that Allen had committed in 1983. According to the police report from the Two Rivers Police Department on August 2nd, 1983, Allen came up over some sand dunes on the same beach on which PB was assaulted, only some distance south of that point, and began walking behind a woman. He then pulled his shorts halfway down and began doing things to himself. He then lunged at her, but the woman was able to run away. Ugh, gross. That's so gross. What is wrong with people that do that? Following the incident, Allen contacted the victim twice at her home and asked her to drop charges. The victim was moved to Green Bay for school and did not know how Allen knew this or how he knew her phone number. Allen also contacted the victim's mother 5 days after the offense and asked to talk to Sue, which was the victim's name. Okay. Allen had been convicted on February 28, 1984 for disorderly conduct in the city of Two Rivers. On June 13, 1984, Allen was a suspect in a prowler case in which he attempted to gain entry into a woman's residence in Manitowoc after following her 16-year-old daughter and her daughter's friend. Ugh, disgusting creep. Allen was suspected of prowling on January 24, 1985 and February 2, 1985 in Manitowoc, involving walking into people's yards and up to their garages and homes. On January 26th, so he has no boundaries. He will just do whatever the hell he wants. He doesn't care. On January It's 26, 1985. Allen was the suspect of the following investigation. A woman told Manitowoc police that at 6:30 a.m. she saw a male subject wearing a ski mask between her yard and a neighbor's yard. The suspect had taken a brick and moved it on the other side of the yard fence in order to stand on it and see into the neighbor's windows. That neighbor had a high school age daughter. Oh. Because he had been convicted twice on multiple charges for prowling, the Manitowoc Police Department turned the case over to District Attorney's Office. On February 20th, 1985, the District Attorney's Office returned the complaint sheet and stated charges would not be issued because it was just prowling and there was no state statute available. So you can't do anything to him. The Manitowoc Police Department again cited him for prowling. On August 16, 1985. The city attorney's office dismissed the charge of prowling. Why? Why? Okay. On June 26, 1985, just 1 month prior to PB's assault, Allen was suspected of going to a woman's front door at 2:30 a.m. and exposing himself wearing a red t-shirt wrapped around his head. This guy's wacko. The victim could see the man's eyes, nose, and mouth. She found out later that her kitchen window had been removed. Also, a bedroom window on the north side of a house had 12 Phillips screws removed from it. All right, so he was trying to get into her house, and that is scary. Allen was stopped on his motorcycle a short distance away wearing a red t-shirt. Allen matched the description except that he had a mustache, and the victim said she did not think he had one. He was arrested for a traffic violation and for being a suspect in a vehicle entry the same day in which the vehicle owner had 2 daughters. Allen had 2 Phillips screwdrivers in his possession. Interesting. The victim could not make a positive identification of Allen from photographs. The Manitowoc police noted, "It would appear that this is getting very serious in regard to the suspect Gregory A. Allen. He, in all probability, is the suspect involved. However, at this point, the victim could not make a positive identification. Allen will have to be caught in the act as he is starting to become very bold." Wow. So right there in the police report, Allen has to be caught in an act because he's starting to escalate. He's starting to get bolder and bolder in the crimes that he's committing. On July 14th, 1985, just 2 weeks prior to PB's assault, Allen was suspected of breaking into a man's home at 3:28 a.m. and attempting to assault his daughter. The daughter awoke to find a man straddling her. Oh, God, that is the worst nightmare. Sitting on her thighs and fondling her breasts. Oh, God. The man then placed a knife to the girl's throat, saying she should take off her clothes or he would kill her. He was nude and had a bathing suit wrapped around his head, covering his face and hair. The victim stated that she had her period and not to hurt her. He brought her hand onto his penis and made her do things to him until he ejaculated on her nightgown. He asked where her sister was, and she said her sister was not home. He then ordered her to accompany him to the back door where he had her let him out. As he was leaving, he told her not to tell anyone or he would kill her. A neighbor stated that he saw a man park his motorcycle near the victim's house at approximately 2:30 a.m. and then walk towards the victim's house. Allen had a motorcycle. Another neighbor stated that at approximately 2:42 a.m., she observed a man carrying a picnic bench between her house and the victim's house. The suspect had gained access to the house through the window. Another neighbor had seen a man duck into the bushes of the victim's home 1 month prior to the July 14th incident at approximately 8:30 p.m. He then saw a motorcycle parked in front of elderly couple's house nearby. Police were unable to obtain a positive identification of Allen. That's the thing. So you dropped all these other prowling charges and whatnots, and now you can't get anything to stick because now you have to catch him in the act, and this is so stupid. He's doing all these things, but nobody can identify him. A police report from the Manitowoc Police Department dated July 17th, 1985 stated, "This department has compiled several complaints recently concerning prowling, window peeping, incident exposure, and SA ranging from January 1985 through July 14th, 1985. I'm pausing because I thought that his crimes went back to 83 at least. I mean, he was doing crimes when he was a juvenile, but these types of assaults were going on in 83, not just from 95 or 85, sorry. So in each case, Gregory Allen has been listed as a suspect. Past record and intelligence concerning Gregory Allen reveals he is a dangerous individual with a potential for violence. The Manitowoc Police Department then began monitoring Allen's whereabouts on a daily basis, often more than once. On the day of PB's assault, there were 2 entries, one indicating the whereabouts of Allen's motorcycle and another vehicle and the other stating unable to check due to other calls. Okay. Kosarik told investigators that it would have been nice to have more information on Allen in 1985, but that the Sheriff's Department and Police Department did not have joint records or joint dispatch as they do now. That may be so, but you were also told that there was someone they had in their custody that was admitting to the crime. So you should have done more. But in 1985, yes, they didn't, that he hadn't committed or admitted it yet. But in 1985, they should have had some better knowledge of who was wanted and who had done similar crimes in that area. But it is true, they didn't have a database like they do now, or they didn't share. I'm cold, so I'm under my blanket. They didn't share databases like they do now. Anyway, so other sheriff's deputies, including the captain of detectives in 1985, Don Bells, and Deputy Arland Avery, Arland is an uncle, voiced their concerns to investigators that the case against Avery moved too quickly. This characterization was also confirmed by Lieutenant Leroy Bilkey, who was in the Traffic Bureau for the Sheriff's Department in 1985. Bilkey told investigators that he was informed by one of the sheriff's deputies that a man was seen in the area where the SA took place at the time that the assault took place. So this man was known for committing these types of crimes and matched PB's description. Bilkey believed the man was from the Sheboygan area, and there is no information to indicate this man was Gregory Allen. Bilkey immediately told Bells about this, but Bells told Bilkey that the Sheriff's Department was not going to bring this individual in for questioning. Bells said he could not do it because the sheriff wanted Avery convicted because the description provided by the victim matched Avery's. That's why. Okay. In contrast, Kosarik told investigators that any suspect brought to his attention would have been thoroughly investigated, but we don't really have that or believe that at this point. So the district attorney's knowledge of Allen. With regard to the district attorney, the department's review revealed the following. As stated above, 2 years prior to the assault against PB, Allen was charged for an offense on the same beach in which he did things to himself while walking behind women and then lunged at her. The prosecutor in the 1983 case against Allen was Dennis Vogel, the same prosecutor handling the 1985 charges against Avery. According to the docket sheet, so Vogel should have known about not just about Allen, but about the types of crimes that Allen committed. According to the docket sheet from the Manitowoc County court file, the charges were reduced from incident exposure to disorderly conduct in February 1984, and Allen was convicted and fined $100 for the offense. the 1983 offense. So his charges kept getting lessened for him, and he keeps getting some kind of leniency and getting away with more and more. So he is getting bolder and bolder in his crimes. A copy of the criminal complaint and the Two Rivers police report for the 1983 incident involving Allen is contained in the prosecutor's file for the 1985 case against Avery, again indicating that District Attorney Vogel was aware of the 1983 offense at the time that he prosecuted Avery. Police reports by the Two Rivers Police Department on another suspect, AP, accused of a series of incident exposures are also contained in the file. So there's another suspect besides Allen that could have been doing these things because they had similar incidents of exposing themselves. In addition, personnel from Vogel's office at the time told investigators that they did not believe that Avery was responsible for the 1985 assault, but believed Allen was. At least 2 employees claimed that they brought their concerns to Vogel's attention. Jill Martins worked in the Manitowoc County DA's office as a secretary or paralegal in '85. She worked near Beverly Bodker and Brenda Peterson. Neither Martins, Badker, or Peterson thought Avery was the one who committed this crime because there were too many inconsistencies. Martin stated she was familiar with Allen because he was a peeper who had a history of SA. Martins never expressed her concerns directly to Vogel. She believed that there was a sense of urgency to get the case done quickly because the victim was someone well known in the community, so there was pressure to get anyone convicted because of who she was, her status in the community. Unreal. That just means an injustice for the person that you wrongfully commit, and an injustice for Penny because you didn't get the right person. So it's never justice when things are rushed or done improperly in their investigations. Brenda Peterson is the Manitowoc County Victim/Witness Coordinator and worked in the Manitowoc County Prosecutor's Office in 1985. She told investigators that as soon as she saw the composite drawing, she thought it was Allen who committed the offense. She was familiar with Allen from the court hearings. She said from what she knew of Allen's history, the attack on PB seemed to fit Allen. She stated that Allen had been in court for various reasons, including charges of stalking, window peeping, watching women at Red Arrow Beach, and stealing women's undergarments. This guy is different. She was aware that the Manitowoc Police Department was watching Allen because of his behavior. Throughout the trial, she never believed Avery committed the crime. She stated she was vocal about how she felt and had conversations with the officers involved. She believes Vogel would have heard her make those comments. She heard that someone had checked with a probation officer in Door County who stated that Allen was in Sturgeon Bay at the time of the assault. She believes she heard this in Vogel's office. Peterson also thought it was peculiar that Kosarik was so involved in the case and that there were many closed-door sessions between PB, Kosarik, and Vogel, which was odd because usually she would be in the room during an interview with the victim. She believes Kosarik put a lot of pressure on Vogel to prosecute. Vogel denied being pressured to prosecute anything. Moreover, Kosarik stated that he handled the investigation only because no other detectives were available to handle the case, and that he did not need to pressure Vogel. Okay. Beverly Bodker currently works as a paralegal in Manitowoc County DA's office. In 1985, she was the secretary there. She told investigators that when she saw the composite drawing, she immediately thought it was Allen. She was familiar with Allen because of his prior contacts with the DA's office. She believes that he may have come to the front counter. She claimed that she told Vogel the drawing looked like Allen and not Avery. Vogel told her that Allen could not have committed the crime because he was on probation in Door County at the time the crime was committed, and that Allen's probation officer had been contacted, and the probation officer verified that Allen had an alibi covering the time that the crime was committed. Investigators later discovered that Allen was not placed on probation until April 2nd, 1986, well after Avery's conviction. So, long time has passed. Had to have passed for him to be on probation. So Vogel, we're almost done with this. So Vogel told investigators that he did not specifically recall anyone from his office making any comments regarding this case, but that office staff frequently discussed cases. Okay. I'm sure they do. It's the gossip. It's, hey, what's going on with this one? What's going on with that? So he further stated that he did not receive any pressures from the sheriff regarding this case. He stated Allen had never struck him as a big-time criminal, but only someone with some exposure cases. But this is okay, never mind. Just, okay. Even though he has a long-ass history of criminal offenses. In view of the foregoing, Allen could have been an even more logical suspect than Avery had all the agencies shared their information. However, because the sheriff's department had only one suspect in mind at the time of the photo array and PB identified that suspect as her assailant, the sheriff and eventually the district attorney became convinced that Avery had no one else was the responsible party. Compliance with discovery requests by defense counsel. This is always an issue to get discovery in a case, especially when the state's case isn't very solid. It's very difficult to get all the discovery you need in a timely manner. So as stated, the prosecutor's file on the 1985 Avery case contains the criminal complaint and police report regarding the 1983 offense committed on the beach by Allen. It is clear that defense counsel's discovery requests included a request for information on all other suspects. Because the defense attorneys interviewed did not recall hearing Allen's name at the time of the investigation into the 1985 Avery case, a question arose as to whether the information had been turned over to the defense counsel. The department's review indicates that the information appears to have been timely disclosed. Okay. First, on August 6, 1985, original trial counsel Assistant State Public Defender Risa Evans filed a motion for exculpatory evidence in which she requested, among other things, any and all evidence and or information in the state's possession, knowledge, or control which would tend to show that a person other than the defendant committed the crime charged, or which would form the basis for further investigation by the defense. On October 10, 1985, the same attorney filed an additional discovery motion asking for any law enforcement reports of a suspicious person or similar reports in the vicinity of Nashotah Beach and or Point Beach Park and or the vicinity of the alleged assaults in the last year. So it appears that the district attorney complied with these requests. Contained in the defense file is a copy of the Two Rivers police report involving the 1983 Gregory Allen incident. This police report is one in a series of police reports contained in the file. The first of these reports is a report of lewd and lascivious conduct involving another individual, AP. It is stamped by the Office of the Public Defender in Manitowoc as received October 23, 1985. Notations on that same page cross-reference the police report with the 1983 Gregory Allen lewd and lascivious charge. The file contains the Gregory Allen report and lewd and lascivious report with AP as the suspect, and 3 other incident exposure reports from the Two Rivers Police Department, 2 of which name AP as a suspect and 1 of which does not name a suspect. The Allen police report and the 4 other police reports are the same reports contained in the prosecutor's file. In light in this information, it is reasonable to assume timely disclosure of the Allen reports. Moreover, Vogel told investigators that he had an open file policy in every case and that he withheld nothing. He stated that he had a very good working relationship with the public defenders and always gave them access to what he had collected as part of his case. Sure. Indeed, Assistant State Public Defenders Jack Scherer and Risa Evans claimed in a June 1986 post-conviction motion for an in-camera inspection of the DA's file that the open file policy of the DA's office did not exist for post-conviction matters. This indicates that an open file policy did exist pre-conviction. Additionally, there is a July 14, 1986 letter from trial counsel James Bogert to Mr. Scherer indicating, quote, "The reports section of the district attorney's file was open to me. I reviewed it and compared against the discovery provided to me, which reports I have in turn provided to you." Finally, at some point prior to Avery's first appeal in 1986, Prosecutor Vogel filed an affidavit which stated pre-trial discovery was complied with in that the entire file was made available for inspection to defense attorney James Bogert and that numerous contacts took place regarding information therein. Thus, it appears that the defense counsel was provided with the police report, involving the 1983 Allen lewd and lascivious incident, and the Vogel complied with complied with discovery requests. So, no incidents there regarding discovery. And conclusions. There is no basis to bring criminal charges or assert ethics violations against anyone involved in the investigation and prosecution of this case. At worst, the sheriff's department failed to investigate a viable suspect. I think that's pretty bad, though. Gregory Allen, in its quest to capture PB's assailant quickly. Had the sheriff's department taken more time, investigated the case even, in exploring potential suspects prior to the photo array and live lineup, it is possible that Allen's photograph might have been included in the photo array or that Allen himself might have been in the live lineup. While it is impossible to know whether PB would have chosen Allen or as her assailant, including Allen obviously would have increased the chances that PB would have chosen the right person, especially considering that Allen and Avery had a similar appearance. So once PB identified Avery as her assailant, the sheriff's department and prosecutor became convinced that he was the perpetrator, especially once some of the other circumstantial facts appeared to confirm her identification. Nonetheless, while in many cases eyewitness testimony is reliable and strong evidence, it is by no means unassailable and should not be viewed as such by law enforcement agencies. It shouldn't be your only form of evidence against the person. Law enforcement agencies must and should investigate all reasonable suspects and alternative hypotheses consistent with innocence. Not only does this help assure that innocent people are not convicted of crimes that they did not commit, but it also helps prevent the guilty from continuing a course of criminal conduct. Moreover, this case also underscores the necessity of sharing information between law enforcement agencies. It should be noted that developing information technology affording police agencies throughout the state access to defendant information and police reports should facilitate such information sharing in the future. Moreover, such emerging technologies should also allow investigators opportunities to do thorough and targeted searches to determine potential suspects. So they have said there is a flaw in what we are doing now. We need to move forward with making sure that we're doing it correct. We're doing it the right way this time. All right, so have the sheriff's department gathered all of the information in the possession of the Manitowoc and Two Rivers police departments, it is difficult to believe that Allen would not have been a suspect. Had Allen emerged as a viable suspect, it also would have been incumbent upon Vogel to follow up on the alibi reportedly provided by Allen's probation officers, if in fact Vogel was aware of such an alibi. Well, why didn't you follow up on the alibi of Steven Avery? You had 16 eyewitnesses. It would have been an easy task to verify Allen's probationary status had he been considered a suspect. The underlying problem in this case is that the investigators responsible for the investigation into the assault of PB never deemed Allen a suspect. Finally, it bears emphasis that Avery's innocence was established through scientific analysis of evidence not available at the time of his conviction. In the interim, DNA evidence has gained acceptance in the criminal justice system as having forceful, potentially irrefutable, probative value. In contrast, eyewitness identifications have been subject to pretrial and trial challenges based on a myriad of factors having to do with the witness's opportunity to observe as well as the ability to recall the suspected predator. Or perpetrator, sorry. Those challenges were made in this case and evaluated in line with established legal standard. In the end, the jury unanimously concluded that the evidence before it satisfied the prosecution's burden to meet an even more established constitutional standard of proof, guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Had the investigation into the assault of PB been conducted using currently available technology, it is reasonable to believe that the trial of Steven Avery never would have occurred. What do you guys think about that? So the Department of Justice says no one needs to be liable for Steven's wrongful conviction. You guys did what you did with what you had at the time, so no one's at fault. A man just lost 18 years of his life, but we're not going to blame anybody. If that were you, who spent 18 years of your life in prison for a crime that you did not commit, and they didn't fully investigate the crime in the first place, how would you feel? How would you feel? They won't even take accountability. And then the Department of Justice investigates them for what they did or how the investigation took place, and they say, oh, nothing to see here, it's fine, no big problem. Even though you completely left out other angles, other ways to identify the suspect. So this was I thought this document is a good recap though of what went wrong in a lot of the investigation, and we'll get more into that in the next episode, which we're going to talk about the civil suit. So after all of this, Steven gets let out of prison after 18 years for a crime he didn't commit, and all of this information comes to light. Now he has a civil suit with the the Manitowoc Police Department and City of Manitowoc. So we'll get into that in the next episode. We'll get into the civil suit and how that went down. So join me for the next one. Thank you so much for joining me for this one. I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos, and let me know in the comments below what you think about the DOJ saying nothing to see here, no one needs to be punished for a man losing 18 years of his life. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.